He has over 500,000 YouTube subscribers. He's a Bassmaster Open winner, a Bassmaster Classic qualifier, and most recently, he is a Bassmaster Elite Series qualifier. This week, Ben Milliken joins me on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
And just in case you're wondering, it is officially Wednesday because I am back in your life. Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks. As always, you're all welcome here at the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. Welcome into the 133rd edition of this particular show. And it is a crazy week in the fishing world. Lots going on. In other sports, they kind of call it the silly season, and let's just say it's gotten a little silly pretty quick here in the off season. But before we talk about the off season and all the craziness, a very special shout out right now to Will Davis Jr. Will Davis Jr., you know that name. He's the Bass Nation National Champion that qualified for the Bassmaster Elite Series this past year and won a Bassmaster Elite Series event. As if that's not enough, he is now the first person in history to be a back-to-back Bass Nation National Champion, and congratulations. Couldn't happen to a better dude, and you're going to hear lots from Will Davis Jr. in the future. Incredible. So congrats on making history. I want to also congratulate in second place Tim Doobie, I believe, and Josh Weisner. This is a good way for me to find out if I'm saying their name wrong, because they'll contact me and say, hey, fix my name before we get to the Bassmaster Classic, and it's a lot, more embarrassing. So they will all be in the Bassmaster Classic. The top three go to the Bassmaster Classic. Will Davis Jr. does not need to use his Classic berth, so that knocks down into Elite standings. So David Gaston, the first guy out of the Bassmaster Classic, he is in the Bassmaster Classic now. Congratulations for all involved. It was a great event, and I love that event. It's a special event, and it kickstarted so many amazing careers. Speaking of kickstarting careers, last week's show was recorded before this information was official, so I couldn't even welcome them. But we have 9 brand new qualifiers for the Bassmaster Elite Series right now, and winning it. Angler of the Year this past year, JT Tompkins. You know that name. He fished the Bassmaster Classic last year, but he is your Angler of the Year coming to the Elites. Right behind him, nobody's shocked to see John Garrett, another former Bassmaster Classic qualifier, qualified for that Classic through the College Bass Series. In third place, Trey McKinney. Now, this dude, I do not know him, but I have heard about him for years, and he lived up to every bit of hype. 18 years old, qualified for the Bassmaster Elite Series. That is unfathomable. When I think of what I was doing when I was 18, and this dude is about to hook up a truck and drive across the country, kudos to him. Obviously a super talent. Robert G. is in fourth. In fifth, Kenta Kimura. He doesn't need an Elite Series berth, so that actually gets knocked down to the top 10 qualifying, but a great season in the Opens for Kenta. Right behind him, Tyler Williams, a guy I'm looking forward to hanging out with. Wesley Gore in 7th. In 8th, Logan Parks. You saw him on this very podcast just a few weeks ago, so congrats to him. He made it happen. In 9th, Ben Milliken. May just see him in a few minutes. And in 10th place, Kyle Patrick. Congrats to all of you. That is incredible what you guys have overcome. And there was a lot of hoopla. There was a lot of people that said, I don't like them going to 9 to qualify. And I get that side of the argument. But what I will say is this is 9 incredibly tested, incredibly prepared, and incredibly ready anglers coming to the Elite Series. And I think you'll see that in their finishes next year. Hard luck story of the year. In 11th place, a lot of people were cheering for him to get back in the Elite Series. Bobby Lane falls 1 spot short. But there are so many names on that list that are just so close, and I hate to mention anyone because I feel like I left people out, but in 12th, Kyle Austin. In 13th, Brett Cannon, man, what a season he had. Keith Tuma, another classic qualifier in the past, in 14th. Jamie Bruce in 15th. Sam George in 16th. I mean, who doesn't want to see Sam George on the Bassmaster Elite Series? Nobody. He's paid his dues. And I got to stop mentioning names or else I'll be down to the top 50. But congrats to all of you. For those who fell short, hope to see you back in the Opens next year chasing your dream. You got so close. Other news in fishing. Somebody has decided to walk away from the Bassmaster Elite Series at a time when everybody is talking about qualifying for a tour. He's decided to walk away, and I got to commend him. Micah Fraser has decided to, after 9 years in the Elite Series, he's a former Elite Series champion. I think 5 or 6 classics he's qualified for. I mean, he's had a great Elite Series career. But his kids are getting older. His son's about to go to kindergarten, and he couldn't imagine not seeing him. So as a father, as a guy who has spent a lot of time on the road and missed a lot, I totally respect your decision. And as I said to you in a text, there is one thing that no person will ever get enough of, and that is family time. So I wish you nothing but happiness and success moving forward, and I thank you for the memories on the Elite Series. It was an honor calling your events. And in other news, I would assume most people that watch this podcast know already what's going on at MLF. Crazy. I mean, they were every fish counts from the start. Then they switched to 5 fish this past year and decided we don't need no stinking 5 fish. We're going back to every fish counts. But again, all of those changes are just kind of, I think most anglers are kind of like, let us know the rules and we'll sign up and we'll fish and we'll. But the real thing that is shocking the industry is a few years ago, they convinced 80 dudes to leave bass and to follow their dream, follow the MLF way of doing business. And they are currently 1 year away from cutting their field down to 50. Which means roughly 35 of those guys who went with them are going to find themselves out of a job. Can they requalify somewhere else? Sure they can. They're super talented. But it just sucks. And you know what? It would be really easy for me to make a hit podcast this week. I mean, I literally don't even need a guest. I could just read some of the texts that I've been sent, tell you some of the conversations I've had over the last few weeks, or the last week anyways, with that information. But I don't want to do that. And I am not throwing shade at any podcast that does that, because there's a lot of them, and I think that's important in certain ways. I mean, that's the coolest thing about today in history. A person with a webcam or a cell phone, if it's the right person that has the right following, they have as much power as any corporation to get the truth and the news out there. So this is not shade at them. But all I can think about is there's 35 dudes who are my friends and are going to be unemployed, and that sucks. That's 35 families not knowing what to do, and it doesn't matter whether your job is a pro angler or you're a plumber, a carpenter, a mechanic, an architect, a doctor. It doesn't matter. That is a horrible position to be in. That is a horrible position to be forced in. And I'm not going to benefit from talking about that. Now, I'll be honest. I'm not always going to ride the high road. You guys know that. But right now, we're riding the high road. I'm going to stay out of the ditch. But there's no guarantee I'll spend my whole life out of the ditch. But just right now, there's enough information out there about it. I don't need to pile on. And if you look at the fishing industry, especially podcasts and social media over the last few months, I mean, and not just fishing, the world in general has got increasingly more negative. I mean, negative news sells. People want that negativity in their life for some crazy reason. I'm just not going to do it. So, again, no shade on those that do, because, hey, if I was in that situation, I'd probably be screaming. And like I said, it's too big a topic to never come up on this show. It will come up on this show, but I'm not going to jump all in because ultimately this sucks for some people. And it's, I get it. I've seen the, people that are like, well, I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going to say that. There's way too much positive going on in the world to focus on all the negative. Okay? I just told you about 9 new Elite Series pros. That's positive. I told you about Will Davis Jr. and 2 other qualifiers through the Bass Nation. Great stories like Micah Frazier choosing his family. It's so rare. That is so tough and so strong to do. It's the hardest decision to make. Like don't think you're the only dad who has thought that. You're just one of the few that had the balls to do it. And you guys, if you've listened to this show before, that is one of the things I respect most in the world. I mean, sure, I love honesty, loyalty. I mean, there's so many adjectives you can throw out there that I respect. But one of the things I respect most is somebody who is willing to take their sack, throw it over their shoulder, paint a target on it, and chase a dream. And that is exactly what this week's guest did. Ben Milliken, I mean, he didn't need an Elite Series career. He had a career in the fishing industry. I mean, he had has a very successful YouTube site. One of the most successful, maybe the most successful independent fishing YouTube channels. Over 500,000 subscribers he's got. He could make videos there for the rest of his life and derive an income from it. But it wasn't enough. He wanted more, and he wasn't afraid to chase it. He wasn't afraid to say, I'm going after this. And after seeing other people from YouTube go and have tougher times in some situations, he didn't care. He threw him over his shoulder, and he chased his dream. And I think that's pretty cool. And what's even cooler is Mr. 402 is actually in the 402. Let's head to Nebraska and hook up with the head MFer himself. Ben Milliken, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro. How good does that sound?
It hasn't even sunk in. I can't believe it's real at this point, Dave. It's been something I've worked for so long, and I've worked for it my whole life, and this season seemed like it lasted an entire lifetime as well of work. So to hear you say it out loud is a wonderful thing.
It was a lot of fun to watch, but dude, it was an emotional roller coaster. I mean, I could only imagine for you, but I mean, that last weekend I'm watching, and I mean, obviously I'm invested in your story. I think what you, from the start, I've said, to have the kahunas to say, this is what I'm going to go try do. I mean, you painted a target on your back and you went out there and you battled. But this season, dude, it really did. Like, I think of you through the year. Like, I'm like, at the beginning, it was all good. Like it was, and then there was some hiccups throughout the year. And then at the very end, you pulled it out. Was it more mentally and physically taxing than you maybe thought going in? Like, before you fished your first event, when you signed that paper, was this harder or easier than you thought?
Mentally and physically, I knew it would be a huge grind. I've never fished a 9-tournament series, multi-day tournaments. And I think that the biggest thing was probably the 5 days of practice. Yeah. I've never fished anything like that. So I knew it would be a crazy grind. But yeah, I don't think you can mentally prepare for it. Again, being on the water 5 days before, and I know you're not required to be there 5 days of practice, but it's the same thing with everything. You feel like you're at a disadvantage, especially, I mean, I had only been to Lake of the Ozarks, was the only place in the schedule that I'd ever been to. And that was only in the winter. So totally different. I didn't have any idea on any of these fisheries. And yeah, man, it was such a mental grind, and having the family with me the whole year and everything, and the camera guy, camera boat. So yeah, it was a lot.
And you had a baby this year. You know what I mean?
Had a baby mid-season.
Like these are all things that are reasons you shouldn't do well. Like when you look at traditionally anglers, when they have tough patches, it's when there's a lot more pressure coming at them in their life. And obviously you dealt with a lot of that. Does that are you one of those people that gets better with the more things thrown at you, or did you just
I
hold the
mean,
wheels on?
we kind of held the wheels on. I feel like I've always tried to stay as busy as possible, and it's been a whirlwind the last 8, 9 years in the fishing industry full time. But yeah, there was tournaments there in the middle with the baby on the way. We weren't sure if who I was gonna have to leave the tournaments for the birth, and then trying to travel 27 hours up to New York, St. Lawrence River with the baby and figure that all out. I mean, it was pretty much just like trying to survive at that point, let alone catch a fish. So yeah, it was a lot, and it was a mixture of I do well under pressure, I feel like, but also just trying to keep the wheels on the road, literally.
It I mean, to me, it just seems so weird. You're making the Elite Series at a time when every single Elite Series pro, every single pro in any tour is like, I need to build up my YouTube. Like it's like you have everything that they want, and now you're coming over to this side of things. What drove you to want to do this?
So, I mean, and I have gotten this all year. I mean, I'm still getting messages like, "Congratulations, the guy from Nebraska that fishes ditches for catfish made it to the Elite Series." And it's like, yeah, that is what a lot of people saw because I've been making the YouTube videos for 6, 7, 8 years full time now, and I realized very quickly there was a much larger audience for people that wanted to go throw a line off the bank at a spillway for all different types of species of fish. That audience was much larger than those that followed, strictly high level tournament bass fishing on shiny boats. And so that's how a lot of people got to know me. But really, my background, I'm not super young like a lot of these guys doing the YouTube thing, and never went to college, just got out of high school, figured they could make some money on YouTube and started throwing content up. I fished tournaments in college and high school, and then once I got out, when I was going to college and had a real job for 4 or 5 years, I fished as many tournaments as I could then, and my goal was to fish at the highest level professionally. But with a kid and with no money, with a shitty full time job I got with my college degree, it wasn't in the books to go take 5 to 12 weeks a year off of work. It wasn't even feasible for me at that point. So I just fished local tournaments like crazy, and so to kind of look at it like a lot of people do, like, oh, this YouTube angler that just hopped in and decided to fish these tournaments. That would be the case for a lot of people, but that's not my story, man. Like I've wanted to do this professionally for a very long time, and my avenue into the fishing industry, and to get financially stable and work a job where I could, obviously film these tournaments and make money from ad revenue and through sponsorship while I'm traveling. That was my route and my path to get to where I am, and I'm lucky enough that I can have both at this point.
I don't know if it's luck, dude. I mean, I think it comes with a lot of hard work. But it is, I mean, to make it your first year, would you have come back for another year? Like, have you thought that through? Like, going to that last event, I mean, you knew there was a distinct possibility that things don't go perfect. I mean, and they had to go close to perfect for you, and you did very well. But if that didn't happen, if you had to finish 15th in that event and just missed the Elite Series, are you back in the top? Are you back in the Opens next year?
That's a good question, man. That's something we were definitely thinking about, talking about, especially with the what's coming down the pipe here the last week since then. They look less and less interesting to me all the time. I wasn't crazy about the Open schedule for next year, to be completely honest. It's zigzags across the country. Once again, places I hadn't hardly been, don't know anything about. No back-to-back tournaments, so it's just a grueling schedule next year in the Opens. I'll say that fishing with BASS at the highest level in the Elite Series, I think, is the pinnacle of the sport right now, and that's what my goal has been. So I probably would have come back, but I would have needed to take some time here this next couple weeks to kind of get my mindset right and come back and do it. I don't see it being a thing though where I would have done it for 3, 4, 5 years.
So let's play hypothetical. Let's say you were in that boat and you're coming back next year to fish the opens, what bit of advice or what different, like, would you go into this next year thinking?
Oof, that's tough. I honestly, I wouldn't do a lot different. I think maybe I would pre-practice a few times at some of these places, just to kind of make sure I was more familiar, because there was a couple times this year where I thought I knew what the lake, laid. I do a ton of research and try to figure everything out, but I thought when I was get there that it would look one way, and then I'd get on the water and it would be like, oh, it is not what people have been saying. And I think that's a lot how much fishing has changed, with forward facing sonar, with COVID, the last 3 or 4 years. Like, you go to these bodies of water and they're 360 or 180, I guess, from how they were traditionally for the last 30 years. And so I definitely would probably spend some more time in the off season pre-practicing. That's one thing I would do different.
How much actually did forward facing sonar play into your success this year?
I talked to Penger about that a little bit. He asked me what percentage of fish that I caught with forward facing sonar. And I guess my question for him was, are we talking like there's a fish, I'm casting to it and catching it, or does it count if I'm throwing at a brush pile that I can fish more efficiently with forward facing? Or does it count if I side scanned a school and saw a group of fish on the side of a shell bed and I can pinpoint where to cast where there's some flickers on the bottom? Does that count as a forward facing sonar catch? I mean, I probably catch them regardless. I caught a lot of fish, grinding the crankbait, hair jig, dragging a Carolina rig that I wasn't casting on a fish or a brush pile. I'm just throwing a big worm in a brush pile. I'm not throwing to one fish. But I think I came up with, I caught probably 30% of the fish casting at an actual fish. And the rest of them, I was either blind casting or just throwing at a group of fish or a brush pile or, pinpointing a hard spot I found or something like that.
I think most people would probably think it was higher than 30, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think
just
that
because of who you are.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of misconception with that. I mean, I posted the picture the other day of the 9 qualifiers, and I'm 34 years old, and I'm a lot older than every single one of them there. It's crazy. But a lot of people think like that's because JT Tompkins goes out and puts his trolling motor in the water and scans around and can catch the fish he sees on his forward facing better than everyone else. That's so far from the truth. These guys understand fisheries at a different level. They all use forward facing sonar, just like everybody does at the top level to some extent. But I mean, that's not the sole reason the sport, the younger guys have dominated in the opens this year for the most part.
So here's something that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, because what amazes me is not that you made it, but to make it in your first year and to have arrived like that. I always tell people the amazing thing about tournament fishing, in my opinion, sure, it makes catching a 5-pound bass so much more exciting if you do it in a tournament, puts it on steroids, but it also keeps you at the very top of the learning curve, like on top of all the latest, greatest techniques. And quite often when you see somebody come from another world, whether it be YouTube, TV, whatever, they're not as topped up on that stuff. You know what I mean? There's a few little rigs and different approaches, but I'd say you came in very prepared for this. Is that just always the angler that you've been? Like, how have you, without the tournament experience previous to now, how have you stayed as in touch with the cutting edge of this industry as you have?
I think it's kind of a lot of things. I've always been looking for an edge back when I tournament fished, however possible. And one way that I did that was with bigger baits. And I was throwing 6-7 inch soft baits, Huddleston's, Ospreys, stuff like that, way back in Nebraska and Iowa 15 years ago. And it wasn't wide open like you're thinking about at Clear Lake in 2009 or whatever that was. But I mean, it was getting one more quality bite a day. And just my experiences with baits and techniques like that has always kept me looking for the next thing. And I think I was one of the first adapters of forward facing sonar. and really put the time in and learned it and did some crazy things with it. And I follow the Elite Series and the top levels of tournament fishing and not the top levels of tournament fishing. I'm a nerd for the sport. So I see all the baits that, whether they're actually what they're catching them on or not, I know what's going down. And then on top of that, I mean, working with Sixth Sense, they pretty much give me free reign to prototype and design things, especially now more than ever. And we got some stuff coming that is, pretty crazy, that catches fish better than what's out there. I'm gonna flat out say it. And man, it's a lot of things that, and the big bait side of things really played for me this year. I think when I announced I was going to do the opens, a lot of people thought like, oh, this idiot's going to come try to just throw big baits the entire time and try to win one. And I feel like I had the tournament aptitude, would be the way to say it, from my past experiences, to know how stupid of an idea that would be. But at the same time, I caught fish at 3 or 4 tournaments this year, in Toledo Bend in my win, that wouldn't have bit anything else, I know, because I tried. And so having that in my back pocket was always something that, was extremely valuable. It adds confidence when I know that they won't eat anything else. And, really I was able to catch fish all season long in different ways that I think I've just learned from going out and filming every single day in the last 4 years.
How was the tournament experience as far as like being accepted in that group? Because I know you go into it, and I also think that the whole tournament angler, YouTube angler thing, that a lot of it's been created. You know what I mean? Like I don't know a lot of tournament anglers that are like those YouTube guys. I'm sure a lot of them a few years ago were taken aback when they started to realize that there's other people competing for the budget and stuff. I mean, that's just not being aware of what's happening in the world. I mean, YouTube's not new. It's been a big deal for a while. But did you ever, deal with any, kind of disdain towards you on tour? And if so, did it get better as the season went on?
Not necessarily on tour. I had a couple people that, were trying to, throw dirt on my name from the start, and in the off season saying I wouldn't make it. And then once I started doing well, they say that it's because I'm cheating. I'm meeting up with locals at gas stations, getting waypoints, trying to start rumors, trying to get me disqualified and shit. So that was interesting. But as a whole, everyone on tour that was actually out there grinding, that understood what I was doing, and because they were going through it themselves, super receptive. Bass was great, very receptive. They were awesome. They didn't give me any special treatment or anything like that, but at the same time, they're super respectful. They understood what I was trying to do with everything. And I don't think it hurt that I started off really hot too. I think if I would have started off with some 90s, 80s place finishes, stuff like that, people would have probably, maybe acted different towards me, but it helped to get a hot start.
Yeah. Somebody actually tried to get you DQ'd. Like, is that real?
Yeah, that's a real thing. That might even be a newly famous podcaster, that was behind some of it, that tried to kind of tear me down in the off season and stuff too. But I'm not going to be petty and mention who that is.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to get into another podcast war, so I'll just leave that there.
It'll come out eventually. I'm waiting for the right time.
All right. Well, hopefully this shows the right time when you're ready. But no, I and how has the response been towards you? I mean, you're an Elite Series pro now. You've qualified. Like, have you had many interactions? Like, has that changed your life at all, or is it literally not going to change things until you start fishing? Or what has it been like since you qualified?
It's kind of been a whirlwind. We were in Florida for a couple of days. I booked a couple extra days to Airbnb because I wanted to take the family down to Disney World and do all that. And it was icing on the cake to be able to do that with that little Elite Series plaque I got, the qualifier. And then, we came home for a day after a 14-hour drive. We hopped on a plane, went back to Nebraska this weekend. I'm sitting in my mom's craft room in her basement right now.
Nice.
So yeah, full circle. I'm back in my mom's basement. But so we haven't had time to really sit down and enjoy it too much, but I have had a lot of people reach out, members of Bass, Elite Series guys, even, some guys in the MLF, of course, and some surprising endemic sponsors. I think the endemic sponsors have been the biggest surprise for me. But I think it's kind of just like we work with all the Elite Series guys on deals type of deal. But yeah, it's been a crazy experience. Nothing too wild as far as anyone reaching out, but Rick Clun commented the other day on something and sent me a message. That was pretty cool. I just can't believe that I get to launch my boat. Everyone talks about it, getting nervous because you launch and you got all these guys next to you, but I cannot believe I'm going to be launching my boat next to these dudes next year at Toledo Bend.
It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. But I mean, dude, you've worked to get there, and it's weird. I mean, when I heard a few comments when your trip at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame sold for as much as it did, over 15 grand. The number one item, I would say, of that entire auction is a trip with you. And I heard some people from the industry that were shocked, which shocks me that people haven't, you know what I mean? It's not like you just started moving the needle now. Whether you made the Elite Series or not, you're still going to be that didn't happen because you made the Elite Series. You hadn't even made the Elite Series at that time.
Right. Yep.
But it shocked me. But there is a, I think making it there, and I think it's what you talked about. It's people going through that whole experience, the highs and lows of, like, you put, and that's, I think, I always say that I think that's why you see anglers cry when they win. It's not because I won $100,000, I won $300,000. It's because, man, I was broke down at the side of the road. There was so many times that everybody said this can't happen. Did those voices of people saying you can't do it, how much did that drive you throughout the year?
It did a little bit. I definitely, a lot of people thought I was coming in to prove the haters wrong or prove that I was a good fisherman, when in reality, it's not as sexy of a story, but this is just my lifelong dream to be on the Elite Series and the top level. But you're right, man. Like, people do not you can't understand the grind and the work without being inside of it. Like, I felt like, I'm not as talented as an angler as JT or Trey McKinney or John Garrett. Like, those guys, I don't even understand how Trey can be 18 and know the things that he does and do the things he does. Like, I'm not that talented. I had to work. Like, what people don't understand is my worst finish of the year, 92nd place, I think it was, at St. Lawrence River. I worked as hard and maybe fished as good there as I did at Toledo Bend when I won. But they look at the results and say, oh man, he screwed up there. He struggled there. Like, he was the 92nd best fisherman there. And that's not even close to the truth. Like, you know how hard it is to drive 78 miles through freaking barge wakes and get down there in the first 10 spots, you're not catching any, you got to make crazy adjustments, and you finally get on something at the end of the day and save your season. I feel like I did that the entire year, was making a last second or last hour adjustment to put a good limit in or catch a big fish and just keep the train going. Yeah, it's crazy, and it adds so much respect to people that fish at this level for me.
I think you're a better person than me, because those voices would have driven me. I mean, the voice of hate will drive me a lot further than the voice of, hey, you did a good job. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's too bad. They tell you should be motivated by like love and not motivated by hate. But at the same time, I mean, you got to try to. I try to not be the person. You got all these. You have 97 nice comments, and then you get down, and there's one person that says, you're a fraud. You got lucky. You caught him because of this. You wouldn't be able to catch him because of that. And you try not to be the person that's only going to reply to that guy and tell him to F off or block him or whatever. But man, some days you wake up, it's a lot easier than others to scroll past that and stay positive. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that YouTube world is, I mean, it's one of the worst for it. I mean, you're going to get a lot of hate, but I also feel like part of that hate that comes, or that target that is painted around you, simply just because of what you've accomplished. I mean, you're gonna have a target on you again on the Elite Series. It's not like you qualified and then it's like, whew, I can relax now. Talk to anybody. I mean, there's no relaxing. You relax the moment, like day after the first tournament, all of a sudden you're like, I gotta catch him, because if it doesn't go
Yeah.
well. But I feel like you're gonna come into this season with a lot of hype as well, because of everything that you've accomplished. What is your goal for the season? Have you even got to that? Or
I wish I could tell you. I haven't gotten anything crazy like that. Last year, I set a goal to make the Elite Series. I didn't know if I'd never competed at that level of competition, so I had no idea if that was possible. And to qualify for the Classic and make the Elite Series is just crazy. But I mean, I'm gonna go look for the winning fish every single tournament, and I think one major goal of mine that I know will stay in my head, and I haven't really thought of much, but I know it will be the goal, is to qualify for the Classic the following year, to finish that top 40 in points, because I feel like gathering points and being versatile is my strength as an angler. So I'd say right now that's probably my biggest goal.
does the schedule set up well for you, do you think?
I think so, for sure. I love the schedule, and that's one thing. Like when they announced the Open schedule, and I didn't love it at all. I thought it was not great for me, and that was coinciding with one tournament left at Harris Chain, where I really had to like top five it to have a chance to qualify. And then the Elite Series schedule's out, and I love that. It was like, man, I had emotions of like, this is sad. Like I'm feeling sorry for myself. Like this sucks. Like I'm gonna have to fish the Opens again. But I also was very excited, and so yeah, I mean, I love how it sets up. I love that we're not doing the Florida swing to start the year like we had for a ton, or like I shouldn't say we, but like the Elite Series has, because I'm not the best, shallow water grass sight fisherman, and everyone up on the series for the most part has a ton of experience doing that from year after year of going down there. So to fish those in the post spawn, which suits my strengths, and then to start in Texas in the pre spawn suits my strengths. So I'm all for it, man.
So do you spend time trying to get better at some of the stuff that you feel you're weaker at? Like with this, okay, you've made it now. Whew, you can relax. You went to Disneyland, you did all that. You're back at your mom's house. But when you go home next week, there's gonna be, you got to get ready to go to work, and that's on the Elite Series next year. When you look at that schedule and you see some stuff that stands out where you're weaker, do you spend this off season trying to get better at that, or is that just a process that that it'll take time?
Yeah, I think that's something where I just said, like, I don't feel like I'm naturally as gifted as some of these guys, and so my biggest way of getting better and staying sharp is to be on the water, trying new things, and trying to stay sharp, really, because I can't be one of these guys that's like, oh yeah, Elite Series is done. I'm gonna go hunt for 3 months, and then I'll work on sponsorship stuff, and then I'll show up to Florida, and I'll respool and be the first cast I make all year. I cannot do that. If I'm not on the water for like 3 days, I feel like I haven't fished ever. I'm so rusty. So I'm gonna fish as much as possible this off season. More than anything, it's I'm not gonna go try to learn some crazy baits or techniques or anything. It's just gonna be minor adjustments. Trying a different style of hook for a drop shot. I got some hover strolling style baits that I need to get everything dialed in with the perfect rod action and length to cast them further, to get a hook and fish a little bit better at a distance, stuff like that. Real technical, small things, and of course, always trying new glide baits and stuff like that can help me.
I looked on your channel after you made it, and I mean, I think one of the most amazing things you've built, and I think if you're going to have a successful YouTube community, you have to build that, and it's a community. But dude, it definitely feels like you read through your comments, and comments are, like we've already talked about, I mean, I read through the comments too, and you can have 20 great ones and one bad one, and you're just like, that's what you focus on. But what I feel like is a community that is celebrating. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the world's biggest I told you so. Like, if you read through there, people will be like, I started watching your videos when you had this many followers and now you're on the Elite Series. Do you feel any of that? Do you, I mean, I get it if you feel it and you don't verbalize it, because I mean, there's a lot of things in life where you're like, man, I'm going to do that. And when I do it, I'm going to say, you sons of, but then you actually get there and you're like, I got to be an adult about this.
Right.
But there has to be some of that you just like, there was so many naysayers, not against you, but against anybody coming from YouTube and actually making a dent in pro fishing.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see. I went to the Nebraska game Saturday, and the coolest thing for me was, I hadn't put out a single video from the tournament. I had only posted a few times on Facebook or whatever. And people meet me or recognize me, whatever, and they say, I love your videos, watch your videos. But I probably had 8 or 10 people come up to me, and every single one of them said, dude, congratulations on making the Elite Series. Every person knew I made the Elite Series without me ever posting anything, because they were following along, they followed the story, and they were invested in it. And that's the coolest part to me. They're not just watching me because I used a $5 reel in a fishing challenge 10 years ago. They're following along, and that meant more to me than any of the nice comments that you get and you see just hundreds of every day, which are great too. But to actually see the people in person, and that was the first thing they went to, that was special.
Are we going to see an awful lot of red 402 jerseys on the Elite Series and at the Classic next year?
We're going to see as many as possible, man. We'll see a lot. Grand Lake's going to be a special time. It's almost like it was kind of like the difference between winning the Classic or Angler of the Year. Everyone always says, winning Angler of the Year is more difficult. And so now that I've qualified, it's almost like, well, qualifying for the Elite Series to me is probably more impressive to me and cooler to me than qualifying for the Classic. So now I've got a whole schedule of 10 amazing tournaments, not just one for next year. But yeah, it's going to be a special time for everyone that's followed along.
Do you have any plans to bring anything different to the tournament world? I know you do. I just don't know whether you're going to tell me about them, but
nothing too
you're
crazy.
You're a liar. You are such a liar. You are you always act like, oh no, I'm not doing that. Dude, you're a freaking genius. Your whole 402 thing, the red jersey, all of it is genius, but you like to hide behind a neck like, oh, nothing's planned.
Well, here's the thing. You could ask my wife this. I plan things about 30 seconds in advance. Generally, she loves that when I, plan important big things, super short notice. And so I don't have crazy plans. I got a couple ideas. I think I do double down, and I think it's important for people to know, like, I don't need to have sponsors on my jersey or my boat. It's just not an important thing to have. I can't believe we're still in an age where that's like something that the industry thinks moves the needle in any capacity. So I think I'll play into that a little bit, maybe with my wrap and my jersey next year. I'm not positive. I haven't looked through the rules or talked to Lisa Talmadge or anything on what's actually required on the jersey or how jersey-ish it needs to be. But we'll have some fun with it, I think. And we're definitely going to have fun at the Classic. I got a couple ideas for that.
All right. So you're not going to tell me nothing. Perfect.
Not
this
yet.
Is a wonderful
we'll
podcast.
Leave it for next time.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. He's telling us nothing. I think as far as your jersey and stuff, I mean, you just got to have your name on the back. You have to have the Angler of the Year patch on one arm. You have to have a bass patch on the front. And I believe the Elite Series logo goes over your name or under your name, however it works on the back. But they have like a whole angler package that you'll get that'll spell that all out to you. And I'm excited about it myself, because I think that you'll bring a lot of, and I get the whole last minute ideas, because I'm very much that way. Like even at the Classic, like even like I will ask the producers, I'll come up and I'll be like, I have a great idea for an open tease video. And the Classic is in like 24 hours and I need to shoot all this video. And it's weird how Why do you think your mind is like that? Why do you, I call it like a lazy mind. Like I'm like, my mind works really good when it has to, but leading up to it, it's not like even with the angler stat crap, dude, like I'll know it at the moment when I need to know it. But previous to that, if you just said, tell me stuff about whoever, I would have a hard time writing it down. But when it gets to that moment, my memory kind of kicks in. Why do you think of things in the last minute?
Yeah, I think it's probably the same with you as, being a super successful content creator like you have. I think the biggest thing with me is I've understood how important it is to to put out consistent um, quality content for a long time. And so I worry more about like, yeah, I need to figure out a boat for next season, but right now I need to figure out a 30-second clip to throw up this afternoon on Facebook. And I need to make a thumbnail for tomorrow's video. And I need to get back and figure out where I'm going to go film tomorrow. And so I'm constantly, you stay so busy in your head worrying about what I need to do right now. And you just know, like, well, yeah, when I get to the first Elite Series tournament, like, I'll be ready to go and ready to practice and mentally prepared. But if I set things in motion like I probably should, planning a little bit in advance, it's almost like it's more important to just get so much content out. I don't know, I'm just constantly grinding. I don't know if it's the right way to do it or the right way to explain that right there, but I'm constantly thinking about what I need to do today and as much as possible today, that I have a hard time planning things 4 months in advance. That's for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and I get that, because you're putting out the fire that's in front of you. I mean, you can't worry
Hmm.
about the fire that's down the road. You got to deal with the one that's right in front of you. What is the plan for travel? Are you going to bring the family or are you going to hotel it? You're going to camp? What has any of that been figured out?
Hasn't been 100% figured out. Family's for sure coming, and I think we're going to go the camper route if we can figure out the camper situation the next month to 2 months. We've never done that before. We've camped, but we're like hillbillies, we camp in tents and stuff and everything. So we did Airbnbs all this year, which is great, but it's expensive and it's a ton of packing for your entire family and finding one that can have dogs and everything. And so we're constantly, tubs and tubs of Rubbermaids of whatever for the week. It'd be a lot nicer to have it all in one camper. So I think that's the route we need to go. But once again, we need to buy a camper. We need to buy another tow vehicle. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Does it concern you at all that, I mean, I know, and I think you're very similar to this, but you're kind of an all-in person, it feels like. Like, dude, the second you decided you wanted to qualify for the Elite Series, I feel like that is everything you focused on. You've still continued to put out content and everything, but do you worry that, I mean, you have one of the most successful channels there is out there right now. Do you worry that one will steal from the other?
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, luckily, I'm able to do both at the same time,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, it's not like I'm making gaming videos on YouTube or something. At least I get to film the fishing videos and put it out there. But yeah, they take from each other. I am all in. I put everything into making the Elite Series, and my video posting schedule definitely at times got left in the wayside. So I think that's one thing that I have to plan more this year is scheduled videos and being more strategic with my videos. And luckily it's nice having the schedule this far in advance. It's nice not having to have 5 days of practice, so it kind of cuts those trip lengths down a little bit of time. And then it's nice having all the back to backs on the Elite Series because I can schedule things a lot easier. I feel like, and I'll really be home a lot more next year with the tournaments being back to back than I would have fishing the opens. Where I mean, you're zigzagging across the country. There's a ton of those where it's 2 days of driving for us to get to them in the opens. 2 days of driving, 5 days of practice, 2 or 3 days of tournament, 2 days of driving back. By the time you get back, it's half the month is over, just from one tournament. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I need to get together for next year. And yeah, it's one comment, I've been seeing a lot lately too. Like, you had the balls to put everything on the line and your reputation on the line hopping in the opens last year. And the more I think about it now, yeah, that was kind of scary to think about, and more so now than then. And thinking back on it, because then I was just like, well, this is what I want to do, so I'm gonna go try to do it. And I don't care if anybody thinks I'm a shitty fisherman after that. I'll just keep making videos and catching giant fish. But yeah, looking back at it now, it definitely, if I had a terrible season and finished in the hundreds every open, or didn't finish the season and gave up or whatever, then yeah, I probably would have had to live that down the rest of my life, or until I qualified or tried to again. But yeah, what a crazy year.
Was there ever a point in the season that you thought, oh, maybe this wasn't a good idea? Or did the early success kind of alleviate that ever being a problem?
It alleviated it. Even if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have ever thought it was a bad idea. Definitely. There was times, towards the last couple events of the season where I felt like I made mistakes and had a couple bad days, or just not great days when I needed to, that I felt like I was going to be out of it and I didn't have a chance to qualify after that. The only day of the year I didn't catch a limit, I caught 2 fish the first day at Watts Bar. That's the lowest I was placed in points after that tournament, was like 22nd or something. And I thought, I lost 2 or 3 keepers that I saw, and I thought losing those is, I will not make the Elite Series now, because it's just going to be too hard to come back. And then I went to Lake of the Ozarks, and I was, like, I have to get a top 10 here to get back in the points. And I found a great winning pattern, or a top 5 pattern, and the size just didn't show up. And I ended up getting 45th, which is actually a solid finish. But I thought I was out of it then too. And then, at the Harris chain, I knew I had to do really well. And after the first day, I couldn't believe it, being in second place. Then they update the points and everything. I was in 10th place in AOI points, and I was 39 points ahead of Bobby Lane at 11th. And I couldn't believe how the tables kind of all flipped there on that last tournament. And so, yeah, the second day of that tournament was by far the most stressed I've ever been in my entire life. I thought my heart was going to explode, and it was just one of those days where, I'm sure you have them filming too, where like 1 or 2 things will happen, and you're just like, this is the fishing gods telling me that today is going to be a struggle. No matter how many big fish bite, no matter what opportunities are presented, something is going to go wrong, and you just know it's going to happen. You can just feel it. And that was one of those days. And man, we were able to work through it and get the berth. It was crazy.
So from the moment you weighed your fish on that final day, where did you go and wait? Like, were you just sitting in the crowd, or did you just disappear? Because, dude, I was at home working it out, and even Panger texted me. He said he's in, and I'm like, I'm not texting him yet. I am not. I will not until I see the actual. Like, I waited until Hank introduced you guys, because, I mean, I don't want to be that guy. But that had to be crazy for you to go through.
Yeah, it was nuts. We were just me and the family, and Cole, the camera guy. I had some fans that came to watch, and so I was talking to them back behind the stage over by like the lake there. And we waited and waited, and the kids are losing their minds and ready to go home. And yeah, I had Elite Series guys texting me like, congratulations on making the Elite Series. I'm like, dude, there's like 20 people to weigh in. I'm like, I got passed by Logan Parks. I might have passed other guys. We're all trying to do the math, and it just like gets too much in your head, and you're like, I just got to wait and see what happens. But yeah, there was doubt until, Hank announced my name that I got it, and I didn't know at any point that I did. But yeah, that process was pretty crazy, and it was different than most years because the day one got canceled at the Open there, and so everyone fished the second day, and so you had the full field of anglers and the full field of co-anglers, and so they did the co-angler champion, and then you get the guys that are on the boater side, and it seemed like it took eternity. 6:30 or something, 2 hours after I weighed, I finally got to find out.
Well, you're an Elite Series pro, and now nobody can take that away from you, and you just got to go deal with more pressure and put your. It'll never end, dude. It never. I mean, you'll be standing by a trailer next year, waiting to find out if you made the Classic. I mean, it's literally, that's the thing about pro fishing. I mean, the pressure. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, literally, about the only time you don't have pressure is probably you win the Classic, and you're in the next one. That's literally about it. Because I mean, other than that, you're fighting to make the Classic. You're fighting to win Angler of the Year. You're always fighting. But dude, it is amazing to me what you've done, and I know you're just fishing and everything, but to go and to say you're going to do it, and to throw it on the line, and dude, look at the names that didn't make it. When you realize just how tough it is to make it. What was your take on, I mean, you got to experience the first year where it was 9 events and the EQ. What was your take on that whole setup and how that worked out for the anglers?
I think it's a great format. It's as good as you can get, I think, at that open level, to find the best 9. Now, there's some changes I think I would make with, I cry about it all the time, but I think practice needs to be 3 days, just like the Elite Series. I think if you're going to even say that it's a working man has a chance, I don't think you can have people have to make a 14-day trip for one tournament. You need to cut that down, especially that's the rules in the Elite Series, whatever. And people are, of course, a lot of controversy with the information rule and everything that's allowed. I think it's too difficult to police at that level, honestly. Obviously, with polygraphs, you could police whatever you want to some extent. But there's a lot of guys that, get 15th to 40th every tournament and qualify. They'll never be polygraphed. So it's difficult. We get polygraphed for first and second place, but it's just the meat and potatoes of it. I think Bass did a great job covering it, trying to create brands out of these guys to create a story of the guys that were finishing towards the top. And I think it's about the best format you can have as far as the venues you go to, the same format that the Opens have always had with the 3-day tournaments. But I liked it a lot. It was great. And I don't have any desire to ever do it again.
Seems what everybody says, that I don't ever. I mean, Greg Hackney said it's the toughest thing he's ever done in his competitive career. I mean, and I think it's a year-long pressure. I mean, literally, you deal with that when you're trying to win Angler of the Year and stuff like that. But it's literally, like you said, you caught 2 fish in Watts Bar and thought, I am done. There's no, like, it's that emotional roller coaster that you go through. What did you learn? Like what parts of tournament fish? Because you fished college events, you've had some experience in tournaments, but I'm sure there was a lot of learning this year. Fishing an event that many people are fishing an event that many people are pre-fishing for. So what lessons did you walk away with this season from?
Nothing crazy. I think the biggest things for me were definitely the mental side of things. Not getting flustered when a lot of people are fishing an area, to just know that that's the way it's going to be. You're going to be fishing around people constantly. If you set the hook in practice and there's no boats within 20 miles of you, and you're just talking to the camera, fighting your 4-pounder on the spot of great fish that you just found, finally, there's going to be 3 boats that come out of nowhere and drive by you and see you catching it. So the mental side of things with not getting flustered with people around or pulling into an area and just having to fish around people was huge. And then I think I talked to Panger a little bit. One of the biggest things for me was I learned a few times in practice. It's cliche and it's obvious, but if you're not catching them in practice, that's completely fine. You're going to go back to areas where you had some bites and then areas that looked good in the tournament and actually really break them down. I got flustered at Eufaula in Oklahoma this year because I had the first good day of practice and then I didn't catch hardly shit the rest of the practice 4 days afterwards. And I'm like, that's the season. I'm out of it. I'm going to get 190th place. When in reality, I just didn't go in and break that area down enough, and I wasn't thorough enough. And I went in the tournament and caught a 6-pounder and a 4.5-pounder in an area that I just had caught a couple 2-pounders in and wanted to expand on. So I think those were the 2 biggest things was not getting flustered fishing around people and understanding how not important that practice period is at the same time as it being extremely important with finding what you need to find.
Yeah. How did you feel not just pressure on yourself, but I have to imagine as the season went on, because the same thing happens on the elites, it got a little bit more cutthroat as time went. I mean, the stakes continue to raise. I mean, whether you're playing professional poker or whatever, people get a little bit more cutthroat. Did you find the opens to be more cutthroat as the season went on, and was it more cutthroat than you expected going into last year?
I'll be honest, it's actually, I'd say it was the opposite. I'd say it wasn't as
Really?
cutthroat as I thought it might be. And I thought it actually got less cutthroat because a lot of the guys that were scumbags and were doing crap at the start of the season that wasn't right didn't do well and dropped out, and they were gone by the end of it. And it was almost like a camaraderie of guys that were in the top, were by the last few tournaments, we knew the guys in the top 20 to 30 were the only ones that had a chance. And so the guys on the outside were, giving people, a little bit more leeway. A guy let me cut him in line for the lock to get in one lock cycle earlier. People saying, if you see me on the water, I know you practiced on the spot, feel free to come in, fish next to me, whatever. You got a shot, I don't. So there was a lot more of that going on, to be honest, a lot more respect, I think, as the end of the season went on. And that's not the sexy thing to say or hear, but it was really good like that for me anyway.
No, I like hearing that. I mean, to me, nobody talks about that. Everybody, I mean, especially right now in fishing, like
Yeah.
it is real easy to make a negative fishing podcast because there's a lot to argue about right now. But everybody always talks about that. But I also see the other side of that. I'm like, this is also one of the greatest brotherhoods, whatever you want to refer to it as. You know what I mean? Like, you guys do want to beat each other on the water, but like, if you break down at the side of the road, somebody pulls over pretty quick. Like, it's amazing how much fellowship actually does develop. You know what I mean? Like, I look at guys who, and you came into this season and people knew who you were, but there's people like Jamie Bruce is a prime example. And that's another dude that I was on pins and needles hoping he would slide into the elites, because he worked so hard. But dude came from like not knowing anybody on tour, not knowing any of those bodies of water, did incredibly well, and came this close to making it. But I look at how the amount of people that bring him up to me and the relationships that he has with them, but you can't have those relationships without going through that experience. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like in some ways the all 9 anglers that make it, I mean, you guys are going to be bonded together somewhat for your entire career. People might not remember it, but you'll always have a connection to those anglers because you went through something together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another thing that's impossible to explain to somebody and understand without being in it and a part of it. This was, of course, the first year where all 9 was the only way to get in. And so by the end of the year, I don't know how many EQ guys were left, but everyone knew each other pretty decent. And especially, a lot of the young dudes at the top couldn't say enough great things about them as people and as fishermen, as being respectful. So nice to me the whole year. And I don't know, we talk about the Elite Series being the top level, and those guys are incredible fishermen. I don't know how I'm going to compete against the damn guys in the top 5 of the freaking EQ points, let alone the Elite Series. Those guys whoop me all season long. So, yeah, to say we got a lot of work to do in preparation and getting better is understatement.
So if this is all you ever wanted to do your whole life, like, how did you, or maybe I just didn't hear it, but you really haven't taught, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think up till you're entering the opens and everything, like, it wasn't like you would openly talk, one day I want to do this, or did I just miss it?
No, I mean, I've talked about it a little bit, but when you're putting out 5 videos, 7 videos a week for 6 years, that gets kind of lost somewhat. But I think I wanted it more than I really realized it, especially as the year went on. But when I went to, kind of decide what I was doing with my season this year, last October, whenever they announced that, the new rules, the new 9 guys, 9 tournaments, that's the only way to get in. The schedule came out. I liked the schedule. Felt like it was great. I've always had things I didn't like about the format or the fisheries or the way it was set up in the opens. Or I just wasn't, financially or as an angler, I wasn't ready for it at all. But it all kind of came together to the point where I was also feeling, honestly, like a lot of depression. I felt like with some of my content and what I was really doing, because I'm not bragging or anything when I say this, but when I go out and I film for the last few years in Texas, and I've really exposed and some crazy things. I've caught some incredible fish, and I felt like I was filming content that had never been captured before, with baits that had never been captured before, with forward facing, with big baits, with the size of fish. And it's it's great to get decent amount of views, but it wasn't really like getting any traction. Like it wasn't doing anything for me. I wasn't feeling fulfilled, I guess. And so um I guess for me it was like I have to go try this. I've wanted to do it forever. And as soon as I was signed up and it was time to actually go put my money where my mouth was, I realized how much that's the direction I wanted to go with it. And this year, I mean, obviously starting off with a fifth and a first was extremely fulfilling. That was a great way to start. If I would have got out and got kicked in the mouth, then it wouldn't have been as easy or as fun, I think, to get it going. But yeah, I guess it was just something that as I kind of progressed with my career, I was kind of knowing that it needed to happen. I think the animosity from top tournament level guys towards YouTubers, because they think that YouTubers aren't good fishermen, they're simply good on camera, is completely true. They are absolutely right. They are actors. It doesn't take any. It doesn't. There's no way to tell how good their day was, because anybody can go catch a 5 pound bass on camera randomly throughout the country. That doesn't mean anything. Like, as a fisherman, that doesn't mean anything to me. And I understand why they would think that, this YouTube guy is just going to go fall on his face. And so to actually be able to go have tangible proof in a tournament, um, was another reason, I want to get out and prove myself. And so this year was really special from that sense too.
I know you probably can't answer this honestly because, I mean, 5 years ago, if I'd asked you, will you be in the Elite Series, you might not have been able to give me the correct answer then. You know what I mean? Because 5 years, a lot changes. If you look at where your life was 5 years ago and where your life will be 5 years from now. But if all goes well and you continue, is this the Ben Milliken we know for the rest of your career? Like, is this something you think 10 years, 20 years from now, you want to be on the Elite Series?
Yeah, I hope so, man. It's hard to say with the
Yeah.
climate of bass fishing. I mean, nothing's been too crazy on the bass side of things, BASS side that is. But yeah, this is what I'd want to do. My goal was always to have a job in the fishing industry or fish professionally. I accomplished those things, and so I mean, I know this is the top level of competition, and of course, it's not going to be handed to me. I gotta get my points going, and I can't flop the first year or the first 2 years. That's for sure.
What is your ultimate goal? Is it to win the Classic, to win Angler of the Year? Is it the pretty standard, or are we focusing on just surviving to begin with?
I mean, I know that there's a lot more important things to the fishing industry than me winning a Classic, or me, winning Angler of the Year, or winning any trophies or things like that. And so, of course, selfishly, I want those things for myself, and I will work every minute towards those things. But I think it's important that I'm able to use my platform to teach and get more people into the sport that never would have seen it. And at this point, a lot like this year, it was great to see how many people that had no idea about tournament bass fishing, get them into the sport of tournament bass fishing, because we are going, if we're ever going to get where we want to be as a tournament bass fishing as a sport, there has to be more people that are willing to invest in it and watch it. I don't think any of the anglers right now at the top level would say they're satisfied with where the sport is financially. And especially the guys at the AAA level that I just got out of, would definitely not say that. And so anything that I can do to help get more people into the sport and get more people into tournament fishing, I think is the most important goal for me, and more important than anything I could achieve on my own.
I think what you just said is one of the things that never gets said, but there needs to be more people watching it. Bottom line. I mean, when everybody tries to make this into, you know what I mean? There's a million reasons of the term that's been thrown around forever now is growing the sport, but like ultimately we need to grow the sport. Like people like to compare it to golf. People like to compare it to all sorts of individual sports. It's nothing like that because although there's a ton of people that I know that watch Bass live and watch MLFs live and different things like that, the majority of people don't watch it. I mean, it's nowhere near the number like of golf viewers. And I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, that's what grows it. I mean, you need more people to watch it. How do we get more people to watch it, in your opinion?
Whew, that's tough. There's a lot of layers to that question. Obviously, that's the most important thing that I think a lot of anglers don't understand. Everyone wants the payouts to be higher.
Yeah.
They want more non-endemic sponsors. The only way those two things happen is if there's more people watching and there's better television deals or better streaming deals of some type. So there needs to be, as much as I love the Bass 5 fish 4-day tournament, cumulative weight over 4 days, there has to be a different way we can present it. Unfortunately, in a shorter form content, I would say there's got to be, if we're really going to try to take it to the next level and try to beat a golf, or which we never will be, but even a NASCAR, there's got to be a different way that we're able to televise our sport. I don't know what that is, to be honest, but in the meantime, I think we gotta think about the amount of people that we can get watching it, not just trying to get followers, not just trying to make YouTube videos, but get more people tuned in and watching it, because that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's on everybody. Like, I don't know that there is, and maybe there is, but I don't know that there is a magic, hey, we're not packaging like this and everybody loves it. I think ultimately it's connections. Like, you have a connection with over 500,000 people that tune into your channel all the time. And they're going to come to Bass. You know what I mean? And vice versa. Like, Brandon Palnick has a connection. Seth Feider has a connection. Matt Robertson has a connection. But ultimately, like I said to a lot of people, I'm like, you need to figure out how to connect with those people. Because one of the most divisive things that I heard come up over the forward-facing crap that just seems like a long time ago now that everybody's talking about all the stuff happening at MLF, but the forward-facing, like, there was anglers saying, well, it's not my job to make it entertaining. And I couldn't disagree more. Like, I get that whole way of thinking. I'm a baseball player. I'm going to swing and I'm going to hit the ball. They have a very charmed life. They don't have to entertain in baseball and other sports, but in our sport, in the sport of fishing, you got to do a lot of things that you don't have to do in other sports to make it matter. And I think ultimately, you know, that's a big part of it is the people involved. And I think you'll help that. I mean, you're a character, you're who you are. I mean, they don't have to be Ben Milliken. There's a lot of people, but come as a personality. You know what I mean? Be who you are. Like, one of the craziest things about sport of fishing is we got some of the best personalities that will never freaking show it. I mean, this show is a prime example. There's dudes that I talk to for 10 minutes before we hit record, and they give me the most hilarious crap and then you start recording and it becomes, I've got to be a serious pro. And
yeah.
About being, I mean, the personality could be serious. Like, I'm not asking everyone to be Matt Robertson or whatever, but I feel like ultimately there has to be a reason people cheer for you and people cheer for whoever, that they have to have that connection. And I think when we spend our time just arguing about crap like forward facing sonar and everything, like, I mean, I just feel like a lot of personalities have been dampened in the amount of arguments that have been had over the last 5 years. There's a lot of fishing people that just don't give a crap. They just want to watch fishing and not all the bull crap. So
yeah, it's a crazy dynamic. You know, we talk about golf or baseball. Everyone wants to, not everyone, but, you know, millions and millions of people watch those sports. And 99.9% of people can't hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball or drive a ball 400 yards at the golf club. but everyone can catch a fish. And my son can catch a fish, my wife can, our grandparents can, anyone can catch a fish, yet we're not able to connect with the viewer in a way that is allowing us to grow where we need to as a sport. And just getting more people involved with tournament fishing isn't necessarily, I mean, we've seen the growth with college fishing
Yeah.
and high school fishing. We're still in a place in the sport where we're paying out as the same or less than we did 25 years ago. And it's not because Bass is sitting on $100 million they're pocketing every single year and being greedy. It's just like, we have to tell these stories, and anglers, I think, more than ever need to understand it's great to make a living on YouTube and social media and pursuing avenues of income outside of bass fishing. But we need to make sure that we're sharing our personalities and building our own stories within the organization and during those moments when you get to be on TV, be on live. And I mean, really direct people in the way, whether that be, the higher ups at Bass or whoever, that just ways to get in front of that camera more often, or more opportunities to have these interactions on any type of media platform that's available.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of preach make an impact every time you have like, and one of the masters of that, in my opinion, has. I mean, there's a bunch of them. I mean, Ike Ellie's been a master that his whole career, but to a lesser degree, like somebody like Carl Jacobson. I use him as an example. Yep. Like every time I've ever seen him on camera, whether he's been the hero or been the zero, because he's been on both ends of it, I leave cheering for that guy. You know what I mean? I leave impacted by that guy. And ultimately, I think it's weird, but it's the same thing. I mean, if we were sitting around and you were with a buddy and they said, hey, I just want to make it on YouTube. How are you going to like, there's no quick math. There's no, like, if you start doing this, I mean, you can help them because you have a lot of followers, and you, by endorsing somebody in YouTube, that's going to help them, but it's still going to be just a temporary little blip. Ultimately, if that person, what's your buddy's name? Zark?
Yeah. Zark.
Yeah. Love him.
Zark.
But ultimately, if Zark wasn't Zark is successful because it's your platform, but he's successful because I love Zark. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you watch him on camera, and if Zark was not given it, and no matter how many times you said, hey, follow my buddy Zark's great, I wouldn't know his name. You know what I mean? Like nobody, but because he's real, people are attracted to that. And I think ultimately, we need to get a lot more real in professional fishing. I mean, and I think that's something where everybody needs to look at themselves. Like, what am I doing to this event, this show, to make it more entertaining? And I'm sure there'll be somebody who will go in the comments and tell me, shut up and weigh the fish, which is fine. But I just feel like, I feel like you're going to bring a lot to it with that. Are you ready to answer YouTube questions from every angler while you stand in weigh-in lines for the next year? Because I'm sure you're going to get lots of them.
Yeah, definitely. But let's bring them on. I probably don't have a good answer for any of them. My brain will be so damn fried by the time I'm weighing in every day, like it always is. I won't even know what to say. But yeah, everyone needs to do their part. That's for sure. If we're going to get it anywhere, we need to stop teaching the high school kids, what the best bait is and how to send a email to sponsors to ask for a discount, and start teaching them to be themselves and build a personality on camera, off the camera, on social media, and attract people and get people invested in yourself, because there's so much back end stuff that people never see that they just want to be given to them. And yeah, man, we're gonna do the best this year to really bring it, to get people engaged in the story, not just my own, but the entire Elite Series and Bassmaster as a whole. And that's what I'm most excited for. And we're gonna kick some ass too.
Social media in general, how do you? Let's get away from the Elite Series and talk about social media real quick. How do you deal? I mean, what you've built is amazing. So when new things come out, like threads and stuff like that, are you an early adapter? Do you jump on that stuff? Or are you set with what you have?
I'm a little bit set with what I have, to be honest. I should be smarter about that. I feel like YouTube is never going to go anywhere. So that's something
No.
that, I mean, and really Facebook isn't either. Facebook is still as strong or close to it as they've ever been, um, because of the changes they've made. And so I'll always stick with those two platforms. I did mess with TikTok a little bit to start, like before almost anyone I had seen in fishing, and it didn't really do much for me. Kind of the same with podcasting. I know it's it's beneficial for a brand, very beneficial. And it's podcasting has become so popular, and it's built careers for so many people, and added to their career like it has for you. I think it's an amazing platform and you're perfect for it. But I tried it and it wasn't for me. I didn't get any joy or fulfillment out of it, really. I want to be on the water fishing for my own platforms and getting better and pulling on fish. And it's just not something that I wanted to do, to be honest. And so a lot of it is what I can handle, with my workload. And I should be better about scaling my business probably, and assigning people to manage different stuff, but different platforms, I guess. But I've been sticking with Facebook, YouTube, Instagram for a long time, and I'll check out new platforms, but it is really hard for anything that's new to even compete with what's out there now.
Yeah, and it's do you concern yourself that it's going to be harder for you to keep on top of that now that you're an Elite Series pro?
Yeah, of course, it does a little bit, but I've made sacrifices with my time and sanity for a long time now, and so going back and getting done with a full day of practice on the Elite Series and retying baits, and it's late at night. I feel like I can push through and throw a video up on Facebook when I get done with that once in a while. So it adds to it a lot, but I also wouldn't be given the opportunity to be where I am without that work and what I've built. So I try to keep a lot of perspective with that.
Yeah. Well, you have worked hard and built an incredible social media following and an incredible tournament following. And I look forward to watching it continue to grow and evolve. And freak, you did it, dude. Bottom line, you freaking did, like, good for you. I mean, look how many people tried and you did it. And nobody can take that away from you. So now you're a tournament angler. You screwed it all up. You were a social media star. People were paying $15,000 to fish with you, and you went and screwed it up and became a tournament angler.
Yeah, all my buds on the Elite Series always, before I even announced I was doing the Opens, they're like, "Man, you have it made. You get to go fish wherever, whenever you want to. Don't ever do this crap." And so I went and did it. But yeah, and I just want to say thank you to you for all your help this last year. All the support you've given me, and reaching out when you didn't need to or have to. And I don't, people don't see that side of you. They see the MC, the podcast, the video side. But as a friend and as a person, you reached out a lot when you didn't have to, and you've helped out a lot when you didn't have to. So I greatly appreciate everything you've done, Dave.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate everything you've done, because I think you've done and are doing for the tournament world. I mean, I think it's awesome. I mean, because prime example, dude, somebody paid $15,000 to go fishing with you at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. If that doesn't wake up the industry to realize that Ben Milliken has been doing stuff, I mean, maybe you had to make the Elite Series for some of them. How good does it feel to get a call from some of those non-endemics? Any of the non-endemics that have called you, are the endemic companies that have called you, are they any ones that you had reached out to in the past and wouldn't talk to you?
I tried to get conversations with them in the past and didn't get conversations. But the best part is, now I can tell them no. That's the best part. I like that.
Well, what are you bringing any new sponsors in next year, or is that?
I am. Yeah, I haven't I haven't finalized or announced it. So once again, super uninteresting content for you here, Dave, for your podcast. But then the next couple months, they'll definitely, I still can't like get a good boat deal. I can't get fishing reels. Like, it's crazy the amount of people in the industry that still just are dinosaurs. It's such a slow industry with social media and understanding where the eyeballs are, I guess. And I get it. I understand where people place their marketing dollars is different for every company. But hopefully that's one thing that I can help anglers with moving forward as well with the Elite Series is kind of helping the industry and some of these bigger conglomerates understand the value in both the social media side and in the tournament side of things and how they can kind of work together.
Well, I think you're going to do a lot of things in this industry. And if they don't understand, I invite them to check out the sea of red that I'm predicting the Bassmaster will be specifically. We're going to see more 402 jerseys there than, I'll be shocked if we don't, but I've built it up to be a big thing. We'll find out, but I'm saying we're going to see a sea of red 402 jerseys, and I might be wearing one, but not on stage. I'll be totally on
Come on, Dave.
I'll wear one. I'll do anything for a free shirt, but I can't wear it on stage probably. But no, congratulations, dude. We never had a reason to do this we talked about doing this podcast before you qualified, like the event. We decided to wait till after, and I appreciate you doing this. But dude, it has been inspiring, and to me, the real exciting part of this story is how many others will there be? And I don't mean people that have big YouTubes. Like, I'm not saying all of a sudden we're going to have all these people but dude, you're a regular dude. You know what I mean? Like, everybody can look back on your YouTube, and you literally set your targets on this and had to build a giant YouTube to make it happen for you. So for all those people that say it's impossible, I think you've inspired a lot of people. And I think it'll be very, very interesting. Just like we have people that show up, like Tyler Rivette has a never give up tattoo on his arm from Mike Iaconelli, and they never knew each other years ago. But I think there's a bunch of people that you inspired this year and will continue to inspire. And one of those people may or may not have been me. So I've been pretty inspired by what I've seen. But
fishing the Opens next year, Dave?
No, not at all. Not at all. I figured a way out to make a living just yelling, just moving the hole that makes the word. So I will not be fishing the Opens, but I would encourage others to take chances with their life. I'm just gonna yell stuff.
I like it. I'll touch on that too. I think that's important, that more than anything that's a personal accomplishment for me, but just for anybody watching, I think there's a major fallacy in this industry, and really people that aren't invested and people that think you have to come from a lot of money to be successful in this sport or to have a chance to fish at the top level of the sport. And they're right in the sense that it costs a ridiculous amount of money at times to make it happen, because the only way to qualify for the elites obviously is fishing the Opens. It's a money pit. 99% of people don't make money. But I literally had, when I went to my very first Bassmaster Classic in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 10 years ago, I don't think I had $200 in my bank account. I lived in an apartment with my girlfriend, who was now my wife. I had a 2-year-old son. I was working a shitty job, and I was waiting tables on the side. I was fishing every minute possible on the weekends to get better. I had no possible avenue to get to where I am now. And yet I found a way to do it without a bunch of financial backing. Everyone's route is different. Everyone's story is different. It might happen when you're 19, like you might be 18, like Trey McKinney, and have the opportunity. It might happen when you're 60, but you do not have to have money in your pocket handed to you to be at the top level in the sport. You have to have a crazy work ethic and a path that you make the most of, and be opportunistic as good as possible and hustle your ass off, and you can make it.
Well, you have done all of that and more. And this story's just getting started. So stay tuned, because the MFers, that's the other thing. By responding to calling people your MFers, I get it. It's Milliken Fishing is the name of the channel. But I cannot wait till the first time I ask the crowd, we got any MFers in the crowd? It may need some explaining. It may need some
It probably will. It probably will.
The one
I'm
and
excited.
only Ben Milliken. He's not only headed to the Bassmaster Classic, but he is a Bassmaster Elite Series pro.
Thanks a ton, Dave.
As always, great stuff from Ben Milliken, and I am thankful for all of you that decided to tune in this week. And if you did, and if you're still here, please make sure to go hit a thumbs up, subscribe, rate, comment, all that stuff that will make us internet cool. Speaking of which, holy crap, I never even talked about it in the open, and I should have. We hit 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you. Thank you. That number was freaking unfathomable in the past. I thought that would never, like when we hit 100, I was like, Hercules, got 100. I never imagined that it would continue to grow the way it does and or has, and it does because of you guys. And I thank each and every one of you for it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for spending a little time. And hey, tune in again next week because we got another banger guest coming next week. Lots of great guests coming up in the next few weeks. Stick around or don't stick around. Just go about your business. But before you do, take it away, Bob Cobb.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?